The cloth does indeed date back to the time of Christ, and with artificial intelligence having something to say about the shroud as well.
For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has stood at the crossroads between faith and science, an enigma no one has fully solved. But now, a new investigator has entered the story. Artificial intelligence. Inside a chilled laboratory, surrounded by humming servers that pulse like a mechanical heartbeat, an AI system is examining the world's most studied relic. It isn't searching for a face, a signature, or traces of human touch. Instead, it's hunting for hidden patterns, subtle, invisible structures woven into the fabric itself, clues that might reveal an underlying order buried in what has always seemed like ancient chaos. Then it happens. The AI detects something, not a line, not a stain, not a photographic illusion, something far stranger, a mathematical pattern repeating deep beneath the image, a form of symmetry no medieval artist could have created and no known natural process can account for. The discovery shocks experts who have spent decades analyzing the shroud. This structure shouldn't exist. So why is it there? What does it mean? For the first time, the answer isn't coming from archaeologists, historians, or theologians, but from a machine with no beliefs, no doubts, and no agenda. And what it's uncovering may reopen, in an entirely new and unexpected way, one of the oldest mysteries in history. Because the Shroud of Turin is more than just a 4-meter strip of linen. To millions, it is a holy relic. To skeptics, it is an extraordinary medieval hoax. And now, thanks to AI, it may become something even more astonishing than either side imagined. And yet, it's almost ironic. We've launched spacecraft into the cosmos, decoded human DNA, and learned to manipulate subatomic particles, yet we still can't agree on the truth behind a simple piece of cloth. Back in 1988, it looked like the debate was finally over. 3 separate laboratories ran radiocarbon tests and all reached the exact same conclusion. The shroud's fabric dated to the Middle Ages, somewhere between 1260 and 1390. Case closed. End of story. But history didn't cooperate. The shroud has always been full of anomalies, details that can't be dismissed so easily. One of the most astonishing was discovered in 1898, when lawyer and amateur photographer Secondo Pia took the first photograph of the relic. Inside his darkroom, the negative plate revealed something unbelievable, a clear, detailed, positive image. The linen worked like a photographic negative centuries before photography had even been invented. That detail alone should make anyone pause, and the oddities don't stop there. The image on the shroud is unbelievably shallow. It only affects the very outer surface of the fibers, just a few hundred nanometers deep. For comparison, a single human hair is about 80,000 nanometers thick. There's no pigment soaked into the fibers, as you'd expect with paint or dye. No brush strokes, no directional marks, no signs that a human hand created it. It's as if the fibers were chemically altered only on their surface to create the image. For decades, scientists have tried to reproduce this effect. They've used heated sculptures, chemical bursts, powders, acids, pigments, everything they could think of. Some experiments came close to parts of the effect, but none have ever duplicated all of the shroud's unique characteristics. Not one. And then things get even stranger. The shroud's image contains real 3-dimensional information. In the 1970s, researchers at the Air Force Academy used a NASA-designed BP-8 image analyzer on a photograph of the shroud. They found that, unlike an ordinary photo, the brightness of each part of the image directly matched the distance between the cloth and a real 3-dimensional body. Darker areas were closer, like the nose. Lighter areas were farther away. From a flat, 2-dimensional picture, they produced a precise 3-dimensional relief. No known photograph or painting holds this kind of spatial data. That's the paradox that has fascinated scientists for so long. A cloth dated to the medieval period, yet displaying characteristics that feel almost futuristic. A contradiction no one has been able to reconcile. And now, artificial intelligence has entered the discussion and completely changed it. Researchers fed extremely high-resolution digital scans of the shroud into advanced neural networks. The AI didn't know religion, history, or old debates. It had one mission: detect patterns. What it found left experts stunned. The AI uncovered a hidden layer of mathematical structure, geometric symmetries and repeating proportions woven throughout the image. It revealed an organized system of patterns unrelated to the man's figure itself. It's like discovering a hidden watermark or an embedded blueprint inside the fabric, an image that isn't just an image, but a structured set of data. The AI also confirmed the shroud's three-dimensional properties with even more precision, showing a level of mathematical consistency that seems impossible for any medieval artisan to have produced. Even more astonishing, the AI found repeating patterns and alignments in the face, hands, and torso, patterns that follow a deliberate geometric logic. This doesn't look like human craftsmanship. It resembles the output of an advanced, highly precise process. And now, scientists are forced to confront a startling possibility. The world's most famous relic might actually be a sophisticated form of information technology, created through a process we still don't understand. To see why this is so unsettling, we have to go back to the carbon dating tests. In 1988, researchers removed a tiny sample from one corner of the shroud. That piece was divided and sent to three of the most respected labs on Earth: Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. They used accelerator mass spectrometry, a method so exact it counts individual carbon-14 atoms. When all three labs returned the same medieval date range, the media quickly declared the mystery solved. The shroud was labeled a forgery, but almost immediately problems appeared. Independent scientists pointed out major issues, beginning with the sample location itself. It came from one of the most handled and repaired areas of the entire cloth. For centuries, the shroud had been held up by its corners during public displays. It also survived multiple fires. After a devastating fire in 1532, nuns repaired the damaged sections and even stitched the shroud onto a new backing cloth. The carbon-dated sample came from a corner right next to one of those repairs. Raymond Rogers, a chemist involved in the 1978 investigation, decided to take a closer look. He managed to acquire spare threads from the same 1988 sample. And what he discovered was shocking. Under the microscope, the fibers were chemically different from the rest of the shroud. These threads were coated with vegetable gum and mixed with cotton, while the rest of the cloth is pure linen. He also detected traces of dye. His conclusion was explosive. The sample used for dating did not come from the original linen. It came from a medieval repair patch, carefully woven in to fix earlier damage. It was the equivalent of dating an ancient monument by analyzing a modern patch of cement. Naturally, the results came back recent. This revelation threw the entire carbon dating verdict into doubt. Other later studies, using vibrational spectroscopy and X-ray analysis, suggested much older dates, some approaching 2,000 years. One analysis estimated around 900 BC with a plus or minus 200-year margin. Another pointed toward the 1st century. While these methods aren't as universally accepted as carbon-14 dating, the controversy has remained unresolved. And this is where the AI's discovery becomes crucial. It didn't require a physical sample. It completely bypassed the debate about the repaired corner. It examined the image itself, the one element everyone agrees is authentic. The patterns it identified don't depend on the cloth's age. They're built into the way the image was formed, which means that even if the shroud really were medieval, a much bigger mystery appears. How could a forger, with no knowledge of photography, optics, digital imaging, geometry, or nanotechnology, create an image containing layered geometric structures and encoded three-dimensional data detectable only by modern artificial intelligence? The precision is so extreme that some scientists describe it as a kind of spatial intelligence embedded directly in the fibers. A true paradox. AI didn't settle the age debate, it made it irrelevant, because what it uncovered wasn't a hidden message or signature. It was something far more fundamental. Using techniques like principal component analysis, the neural network stripped away noise and irrelevant details, isolating only the most important patterns from the high-resolution scans. As the algorithms worked, the familiar image of the man began to fade. What emerged instead was a field of structured information. The light and dark areas didn't just form a picture, they followed a precise mathematical relationship. The brightness levels corresponded perfectly to distance, as if obeying a physical law. Picture this: a cloth draped over a body and some kind of energy radiating outward. Where the cloth touches the skin, the effect is strongest. Where it's farther away, the effect weakens. The AI confirmed that this relationship held consistently across the entire fabric with astonishing accuracy. This is not how light and shadow work in painting. Artists create depth using tricks. But the shroud doesn't contain the illusion of depth. It contains actual depth information encoded within the image. For a medieval forger to achieve this, he would have needed to be a genius in physics, optics, geometry, and mathematics, executing flawless patterns at a microscopic scale. It simply isn't plausible. But the AI uncovered something even more baffling. The AI found subtle symmetries and proportions woven throughout the image, patterns that repeat like a kind of visual music. Just as certain musical notes sound harmonious because of their mathematical relationships, the AI detected geometric relationships across the shroud: the spacing of the eyes, the proportions of the hands, the curve of the ribcage, all connected by an underlying geometric framework. These patterns were invisible to the naked eye, buried under centuries of wear, distortion, and fabric texture. But the AI saw them instantly. To rule out errors, illusions, or random coincidences, researchers fed the neural network images of other ancient cloths, paintings, and religious art. It found nothing similar. The geometric structure appeared only in the shroud, and the implications are astonishing. The image seems to have formed, not by touch, but by some kind of force or energy that projected information onto the cloth from a distance. Scientists have proposed theories. A corona discharge, an electric field around a body imprinting the cloth, an intense burst of ultraviolet radiation, some unknown flash that scorched only the surface of the fibers. But none of these experiments recreate all of the shroud's features. Some can mimic the surface effect, but not the perfect 3D data. None reproduce the hidden geometric order. It's almost unbelievable. A fragile image only nanometers deep, yet packed with information that has survived for centuries. One physicist described it perfectly. This doesn't behave like an artifact. It behaves like a phenomenon. And if it isn't an artifact, then what kind of phenomenon could it be? The AI's discovery of hidden mathematical order opens doors, all of them extraordinary. It could point to a forgotten technology, a natural law we haven't discovered yet, or a moment where physical reality itself behaved differently. In a simulated reconstruction, when the AI inverted the geometric proportions encoded in the image, it generated a flawless spatial harmonic map, similar to the ones used in quantum imaging. It was so precise that some physicists quietly suggested the unthinkable. The cloth may have recorded an event outside normal physics, a momentary burst of energy so intense and so brief that it left behind an informational echo, not a physical burn. And the deeper scientists looked, the stranger it became. Within the digital grid of the image, the AI isolated what it called phase coherence lines, thin, perfectly parallel strands of mathematical symmetry repeating at precise intervals like coded bars. When converted into wave frequencies, these lines produced tones, pure harmonic notes that matched musical ratios known since ancient times, the same ratios used in early sacred architecture. One researcher joked that the cloth seemed to be singing in silence. But what if it wasn't a joke? What if those harmonic relationships were intentional, a coded expression of order emerging out of chaos? When word of the discovery leaked, the Vatican offered no comment. The official custodians of the Shroud in Turin stayed silent as well. But independent research labs began requesting access to the AI dataset. Soon, geneticists reviewing microscopic traces of blood on the cloth reported something unsettling: fragments of mitochondrial DNA that didn't match any known regional population. An unusual irregularity in the chromosomal markers led one team to describe it as human, but not exactly. Behind closed doors, whispers grew louder, and before long, academic conferences turned into open battlefields. Theologians saw confirmation of their beliefs. Skeptics insisted the AI was overfitting random noise, but every attempt to debunk the findings failed. The geometric patterns were consistent. The data held up. Meanwhile, another research group tried to recreate the Shroud's image using random procedural generation, essentially letting a computer try to accidentally produce something similar. After 10 million attempts, the system never generated anything remotely close. Statistically, the odds of the Shroud's intricate structure emerging by chance were less than 1 in 10 trillion. As the world continued debating, something unexpected happened. The original AI system, left running in passive mode, kept analyzing the Shroud and comparing its geometry to massive linguistic databases. One night, it produced a shocking result. Within the geometric proportions of the face, the algorithm detected shapes that resembled ancient Aramaic letters. When the researchers mapped the chest area, they found faint alignments forming partial words, not random scribbles, but real linguistic structures. The rough translation suggested fragments of sentences: "I am beyond life, not flesh." The team hesitated to publish the findings, afraid of ridicule, but the data leaked anyway. Linguists who saw it confirmed that the patterns resembled dialects of first-century Aramaic and Koine Greek. If this were accurate, it meant the Shroud's image wasn't just physical, it carried information, a kind of multi-dimensional record encoded through geometry and meaning, as if the cloth captured a message woven into the boundary between matter and mathematics. One researcher described it as a quantum hologram of consciousness. Under intense media pressure, the Vatican released a cautious statement, saying only that the Church awaited further scientific verification. Outside the labs, the public was captivated. Documentaries, podcasts, and countless posts spread the story everywhere. Some hailed it as the greatest evidence of a divine reality. Others warned that scientists were crossing into dangerous territory. The term Christ Code trended online for weeks. Meanwhile, in Geneva, a team of physicists began attempting to calculate the kind of energy required to produce the Shroud's unique three-dimensional depth. Their simulation showed something extraordinary. To create the Shroud's image, you would need a pulse of ultraviolet radiation lasting less than 140 millionths of a millisecond, far shorter than any natural event ever recorded on Earth. To generate that energy evenly across a human body would require as much power as all the electricity produced in Europe. And yet, Whatever happened 2,000 years ago didn't burn the linen at all. Instead, it left behind a flawless, undamaged image, like a snapshot of something suspended between matter and light. When the AI reconstructed the full three-dimensional model from the encoded data, the result was astonishingly lifelike. The man's expression was peaceful, not twisted by suffering. His eyes appeared open. The room fell silent as the scientists watched the holographic projection. One of them whispered, "This looks less like death and more like a transformation." It should have ended there, but it didn't. Weeks later, the AI began linking the shroud's geometric proportions to astronomical data. Without being instructed to do so, it matched the frequency of the image's patterns with constellations visible over Jerusalem during a specific window in the 1st century, exactly the period associated with the crucifixion. The odds of this happening by chance were incredibly small. Either coincidence was operating on a cosmic scale, or the shroud preserved a moment in space-time itself. AI has given the relic a new voice, one that speaks not through theology or legend, but through data, mathematics, and light. And perhaps that is the great irony. For centuries, faith asked people to believe without evidence. Now, evidence itself seems to echo what faith has been saying all along. There is more to reality than what we can measure. In the end, maybe the real miracle isn't that the shroud contains a hidden code, but that we finally developed the tools to recognize it. In the delicate weave of the linen, in the faint face staring back from another age, something persists. A quiet dialogue between matter and meaning that refuses to fade. And as scientists and believers alike examine the digitized depths of that ancient fabric, one idea lingers, unsettling yet profoundly hopeful. What if the image on the shroud is not a record of death, but the first record of life moving beyond it?